It's finally here, a whole new world to explore. Monster Hunter Wilds has been released onto the public and I could not be happier. I've been so excited to play it, and now I finally can. Let's see what new monsters they've come up with. Oh look, there's a big hairy one. No, he's not friendly, is he? He's not a friendly one. About a month ago, I released a video going over some of the plants that are Monster Hunter World's ancient forest. In it, I went over plant identification methods and used that information to ID some of the plants in the background, and used identifying features to sort the plants that are items. Well, now that Wilds is here, I figured we could do the same with it. Today we'll be going over the plants in the Scarlet Forest. Before we start exploring, let's do a quick refresher on some plant categories we'll be using. I know, this is the boring part, but I promise, these are simply building blocks we'll be using later. With these categories, we can sort any plant and begin to identify it. First off, we need to figure out if it's vascular or non-vascular. Non-vascular plants are mosses, liverworts, the really tiny stuff. Vascular plants are, well, bigger. They have similar vascular structures to us, actually. Instead of having arteries and veins, they have xylem, which goes up, and phloem, which can go either way. Next, does it have seeds or spores? Spore plants are typically ferns and horsetails, while seeded plants, well, they have seeds. If it has seeds, is it a gymnosperm or an angiosperm? Gymnosperms don't have fruits or flowers. The name gymnosperm literally means naked seed. There are plants like evergreens, ginkgos, and cycads. Angiosperms do have flowers and fruit. They can be separated into two categories, monocots and dicots, or eudicots, whichever you prefer. Let's start with monocots. They have a single baby leaf called a cotyledon when it sprouts. It has petals in sets of threes, it has scattered vascular tissues, and its leaf veins usually run parallel to each other. Dicots have two cotyledons, 4 or 5 petals, vascular bundles and rings, and net-like veins. One more way we can separate all plants is if it's monoecious or dioecious. This simply means, does it have both male and female reproductive parts on one plant or on separate plants? Okay, that's it. That's everything we need to start categorizing plants. It wasn't that bad, right? Now the fun can begin. As soon as you enter the forest, you are surrounded by these trees. For the life of me, my first time here, I could not remember the name, but I swear at one point I knew it. I seriously tried and tried, but alas, my brain wasn't coming up with anything. One nap later, I woke up and remembered this is a kapok tree, or Ceiba pentandra. I only know this because when I was little, I loved a book called The Great Kapok Tree. It was really cute. A man falls asleep right before chopping a kapok down, and all the animals come down and tell him not to. He wakes up and appreciates the tree. Sorry. Anyways, C. pentandra is a massive beast of a tree, reaching 252 feet or 77 meters tall. The biggest ones can get 19 feet or 5.8 meters thick. The best way to identify them is by the roots. They have something called buttress roots. They're massive and stick out of the ground in order to anchor the tree down better in jungle environments. The buttress portion of the roots can extend as far out as 65 feet or 20 meters. This is a colocasia. They're more commonly known as elephant ears. They're a tropical monoecious monocot that is often grown as an ornamental plant. Their flower is called a spadix, which is that elongated part of the plant right there. The part surrounding it is called the spathe. The corms, which is the bulb-like structure where the leaves and roots come from, of Colocasia esculenta can be processed and eaten. This is called taro and is used in South, Southeast, and East Asian cuisine, as well as African and Oceanic cuisine. Here's a plant I absolutely love, and I want to own someday. It's called Codegium variegatum, but you probably know it as a croton. They're a super popular houseplant. I love the red and yellow colors, and the flowers look amazing too. This is a picture I took at our local zoo of one of the crotons in bloom. So, flowers, it's an angiosperm, and more specifically a dicot, and it's monoecious. You can tell it's a dicot by its very unique leaves. The veins are in a net-like pattern and don't run parallel to each other. They come in all sorts of shapes and colors too. There's something out there for everybody. In their natural habitat, they can grow to be up to 10 feet tall, or just over 3 meters, but don't worry, they won't get that big in your house. Here we have a Bromeliad, or the Bromeliaceae family. These guys are a monocot. You can tell by the leaves. They're super tightly packed together to the point that it doesn't look like it has a stem. They practically grow on top of each other. Oh, and they don't have a petiole, which is that part right there. They're monoecious and have amazing flowers on them that come in all sorts of bright colors. You can see these growing on trees, meaning they're epiphytes. They have roots that anchor them to the tree they grow on, but they aren't parasitic to it. But some can grow in the ground. Here we have another bromeliad actually. This is the smallest bromeliad, Tillandsia usnioides. This little guy is also called Spanish moss. It's naturally found in southern North America and South America. It isn't from Spain, so the name is kind of misleading. Now, you may be wondering how it can survive just hanging from another plant. Well, believe it or not, it's not parasitism, and it's not classified as an epiphyte either. Its root system is too small, so we call this an aerophyte. They get their nutrients from the air and rain. This plant looks like a bromeliad, but I don't think it is. I think this is Aspanium nidus in the Polypodiophyta phylum. This makes it a fern. I believe it to be A nidus because of the crinkling on the edges of the leaves. You may have seen these at your nearest store that sells houseplants. They're also called a bird's nest fern. There's a subspecies found in the Philippines that has leaves that reach 4 feet and 5 inches long, or 135 centimeters. Alright, let's move on to the next oh, come on. Guys, leave me alone. I just want to look at plants. I talk about herbs, ivy, and antidote herbs in the ancient forest video, so I won't dwell on them too much here. But I will say that they're a monocot based on the leaf shape and the 3-petaled flowers. I did get an interesting comment on the ancient forest video suggesting that the flowers could be green to us, but to insects that see ultraviolet light, they can be a bright and vibrant color to attract them. I really like this idea, so I'm going with it. 25 to 35% of all angiosperms used ultraviolet light to attract pollinators. It took us a while, but we finally found a gymnosperm. This is a cycad. This was another very common plant in the ancient forest, so there isn't a whole lot more to say about it. But I will make you sad for a moment. Cycads aren't very well protected in the wild. There are 4 species about to go extinct, and 7 that have less than 100 plants left. They've been around for millions of years and haven't changed a whole lot since as far back as the Jurassic period. It would be a shame to lose them now. This one is kind of hard to identify. It looks to me like some sort of Ericaceae, or palm. However, most palms with leaves like this, known as pinnate leaves, grow to be much taller. Most of the shorter ones have palmate leaves, so I think this is a baby palm, just getting started. It took me way too long to figure out what this is. It's obviously a canna in the Cannaceae family though. I didn't put it together until I was gathering footage for the final cut of this video. You can tell by its leaves, which have a subtle yellow striping to it, and the flower stalk with multiple buds coming off of it. I think the thing that tripped me up most was the petal count. Cannas are monocots, meaning they have petals in sets of 3s, and I counted 6 petals. But this isn't technically correct. There are only 3 true petals. Those big flat colorful portions of the flower are actually called staminodes. They are highly modified stamens, which is the male reproductive portion of the flower. The staminodes don't have any pollen except for one. This is the true stamen. One more cool thing about cannas is their root system. They grow from something called a rhizome, which is an underground stem. These store starch for the plant, which is used as a backup energy storage. Cannas have the largest starch grains of any plant. This makes them important for agriculture all over the world, as they're used in many different cuisines. The reason this area is called the Scarlet Forest is because of its bright red water. In this water we have some Nymphaceae, water lilies. They're monoecious monocots. The male and female parts of the flower are actually open at different times though. This is to allow cross-pollination between plants, thus creating a more genetically diverse population. These little plants around the Nymphaceae appear to be the subfamily Lemnoideae, or duckweeds. These guys are monocots, and they're in the Araceae family, just like the Colocasia. They produce a spadix for a flower, though they normally spread by budding, where a small baby plant splits off from the parent plant. Here's a very common aquatic dicot called a hornwort, Ceratophyllum demersum. It's found on every continent, but was introduced to New Zealand. Now it's an invasive species there. It spreads rapidly and can outcompete other plants if not kept in check. They're also grown in aquariums a lot. These purple flowers, to me, appear to be Ruellia squarosa, the water bluebell. These plants are native to Mexico and are grown elsewhere as a decorative plant in ponds and water gardens. It's actually a dicot. You can tell by the net-like veins in the leaves and the 5 petals. Again, here's an item plant called a fire herb. It's in the flower fern family. In the ancient forest video, I compared it to Albizia julibrisson, the mimosa tree. I still stand by that comparison too. In this game with the graphics update, it's much easier to see the roundness of the flowers, which is very appreciated. And another item in the game, the slashberry family. So, in the Monster Hunter World Wiki, it's a nut. But in the Wilds Wiki, it's a berry. I like this change, since the plant it comes from is a monocot, and monocots can't make true nuts. So having this plant be bassiferous, berry producing, makes much more sense. It also makes sense in the fact that a berry is a fruit made from a single flower with only one ovary. You can only see one fruit in a particular spot, which is assumed to have a single ovary. Just to make this more frustrating, strawberries and raspberries aren't true berries. But tomatoes and bananas are, so have fun with that information. In fact, don't the slashberries kinda look like bananas? It's time for my favorite little baby plants, the Bryophytes. Bryophyte is the phylum for the mosses. My favorite non-vascular phylum is actually Marcantiophyta though. Those are the liverworts. I talked about Bryophytes enough in my ancient forest video. Let's talk about the Marcantiophyta here. These guys don't have a single leaf, instead having a thallus because, no vascular tissues. My favorite Marcantia is Marcantia polymorpha. It has these special cups called gemma cups which hold gemmae. When water splashes on the cup, it spreads the gemmae which start new plants. This is probably one of my favorite sections of this map. Look at all of these carnivores. These tall purple-red ones are Sarracenia, the North American pitcher plant. That hood part is called the operculum. It prevents most rainwater from entering and insects from leaving. That rolled portion is called the peristome. It's covered in nectar and wax. When an insect lands on it for nectar, they lose their footing and fall straight down the tube into the enzymes secreted by the plant. These enzymes then digest the insect and absorb the nutrients from it. There are actually two different Sarracenia here. The shorter ones are Sarracenia purpurea, while the taller ones look like Sarracenia flava. If you want one of your very own, go check out California carnivores. Also check them out on YouTube if you want to learn more about carnivores in general. This one brings me joy. This is Dionea muscipula, the Venus flytrap, but I'm sure you guys figured that out already. This one is absolutely massive too. So what do these guys do? Oh cool, look, a bird! Guys, this is so cool. Wait, That's what they do. That is exactly what they do. Poor little bird. Ew. Anyways, back to what I was saying. It's very interesting to find them in this kind of environment. We're in a rainforest, so it's probably very hot and humid, but Venus flytraps don't live in rainforests. Neither do Sarracenia for that matter. Something about them seems so alien that most people assume they're from some steamy jungle on the equator. However, D. muscipula is found in the Carolinas in the southeastern United States. Sarracenia are found along the eastern border of the United States and across Canada. Oh come on, not you again. I'm trying to look at plants, leave me ow! Rude! This here's a plant from the ancient forest as well. It's called the poison cup. It's a species of Nepenthes or pitcher plant, and you can tell by the large traps on the vine-like structure. They're full of a toxic substance that, when messed with, releases poison in the area, poisoning any monsters or hunters. Real Nepenthes act very similarly to Sarracenia. You can also see some Nepenthes hanging from the trees right here, meaning that they can be both epiphytic and not. These here are Polypodiophyta, or ferns. Just like the Aenetus before, they're vascular non-seeded plants. They reproduce by spores that are found on the undersides of the leaves. I talked about them in the ancient forest a lot, but did you know that some ferns have been around since before the late Devonian period? That was over 358.9 million years ago. Here we have some plants in the genus Musa. This is the genus of bananas and plantains. While they're often called trees because of their size, they can get as tall as 30 feet or 9 meters. They're actually monocots with no woody tissues. The stem is made up of tightly packed leaves. This means it's herbaceous. I remember when I was a kid, someone told me bananas were an herb because they thought herbs and herbaceous were the same thing. Herbs are leaves, flowers, or seeds used as perfumes and flavorings. Herbaceous means it doesn't have any woody tissues. This here kind of resembles Epipremnum aureum, the golden pothos. It's a common vining monocot that's sold as a houseplant. A cool fact about this is that the last natural flowering in captivity was in 1964. Because it spreads so readily through cuttings, it doesn't need to spread through seeds. Next time you see some in the store, look at the base of the plant, and you'll most likely see the cut marks where they put them in the soil to root. Now this here is a smoke nut, but it isn't actually a nut. This is another bromeliad. Notice how the growth resembles the ones from before? This is what it looks like in its fruiting stage. It kinda looks like a pineapple. If you watch the ancient forest video, then you'll know that it's because pineapples are also a bromeliad. That makes this family and the pineapple cousins. I cannot believe they put this in. You would not believe my excitement when I saw it. I thought the carnivores were cool, but this is a whole new level. Can you guess what it is? It's one that comes up surprisingly often in my videos. It's a Rafflesia. This is what it looks like when it's a bud. You can tell by the size and those big pink petals wrapped in a tight ball. This is such a cool detail that I love. Rafflesias are also known as corpse flowers. This is because when it opens, it reeks like rotting flesh. This is to attract insects to pollinate it. You'll notice that this bud is kind of lonely too. There aren't any leaves. Well, that's because it's actually a parasite. The flower is the only visible part, and it's the largest flower in the world too. It blooms only once a year. These little plants seem to have a symbiotic relationship with these crabs. I think I know the reasoning too. The plant gets a place to live where it won't be bothered by herbivores, and the crab gets the perfect disguise. It's a relationship called mutualism, where both organisms benefit. Here we have Pontedera crassipes. It's a monocot that's easily recognizable by those air sacs at the base of the leaves. These guys are also known as water hyacinth due to their flowers resembling a hyacinthus genus. This guy is actually really invasive throughout the world, so please propagate with caution and keep it contained. I really like the trunk on this Ericaceae. I like the texture of it. This makes me think that this is Phoenix dactylifera, the date palm. Yeah, dates as in those dates, the kind you eat. This is our first dioecious plant too. It has male trees and female trees. On farms, they typically have multiple females per male, since the pollen from one male can pollinate up to 100 females. In order to pollinate on date farms, the workers must do it themselves. Wind and insects do it naturally in the wild, but when you need a specific amount for food production, it's time for humans to step in. The male flower spikes are separated from each other, and a few are placed around the female flower spikes. This allows for easier pollination, which means more fruit. When they do produce fruit, they can have anywhere from 90 to 180 pounds or 40 to 80 kilograms of it. If you want a great video demonstrating date palm pollination methods, check out the YouTube channel SGEL. Capcom has once again succeeded in creating an amazing world to explore with incredible flora. I could spend all day here. They make it look like somewhere I want to live. Well, besides the giant monsters that want to eat me. Oh, and steer clear of those Venus flytraps. Poor bird. If you like this little expedition, please leave a like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell so you can get updated when I release my next video. Also, please leave a comment giving me game ideas or topics to cover. If you want more content, check me out on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I try to stream from 6 to 9 p.m. Central Time. But I may hop on if I'm just in the mood. See you next time!